Hello, welcome to Casual Veteran Gamer, and in the video today it is Astarion's turn. You meet him quite early on and he speaks to you under false pretenses, saying there's a mind creature and you choose whatever you want. Then he basically lunges at you with a knife. This is one of the reasons why some people don't like Astarion.
Your mind twists.
But here we are.
You try to hold the memory.
No matter what you do, this sort of thing happens. Anyway, when you get him, he will level up to whatever level you are, which is in all likelihood level 2. You could be level 3 at this point now, if you've taken certain paths through the game. Let's have a quick look at him before we move on. So he is a rogue, and he's got a relatively high dexterity of 17, and a constitution of 14, probably the two most important stats for him. Otherwise, 13 intelligence and wisdom, 10 charisma and 8 strength, and he is a high elf, so he does have proficiency with a few extra weapons. And his cantrip that he knows is minor illusion. As a rogue, he does have sneak attack, which we'll cover in a second, because you know what, we may as well level up first. Because at level 2 there are no options to take, you just get a few more hit points, but we also get dash as a bonus action and disengage as a bonus action. So yeah, next up I will talk about sneak attack, because this sometimes causes some confusion. So I just started a fight against these two tieflings, and I could use sneak attack ranged, which deals 1d6 plus 3 plus 1d6 piercing damage. Essentially, sneak attack gives an extra, well, at level 1, 1d6, and then every 2 levels, that 1d6 increases by another 1d6. So at level 3, it's 2d6. Level 5, it would be 3d6, and so on. Because of the game engine at the moment, you can do each of these once per turn, so if you are hasted, you can do both, which isn't really how it should be working. Anyway, you do this extra damage if you, or when you have advantage against it. So if I try and use it at the moment, it doesn't work, right? Must have advantage against target, but it does inform you of a second way of doing this. You can also use this attack if you have an ally within 5 feet of the target and you don't have disadvantage. Now it just so happens that Shadowheart shares her turn, so what I'm going to do, just to try and show you, is if I stick an ally within 5 feet of the enemy, I then pick sneak attack. I now have a chance to use sneak attack. If I really wanted to, I could walk up to the maze and then use sneak attack melee. The sneak attack damage is the same for both ranged and melee, so it doesn't make a difference. Even try and hide to give advantage. If I hit here first, actually let's just show this, make her jump away. Since he is hidden, he has advantage on his attack, so he can use sneak attack without anyone else nearby. There we are, so we saw 6 and 6 there. The first 6 is just from the 1d6 plus dexterity modifier, and the second 6 was very lucky, it was 6 and a 1d6. So this is going to be Astarion's main way of dealing damage. Every turn you want to be finding a way to make him do, or make him use sneak attack. If you have Shadowheart in your team, you can give advantage relatively easy with Invoke Duplicity. So we stick that down. And Astarion might be able to get close enough. So he's got Invoke Duplicity, as does Nymessa. So now you can use Sneak Attack ranged again. Now I haven't shown it here, I haven't had the chance yet. But if you do land a critical hit, then the Sneak Attack damage also gets doubled, which makes it very nice when that happens. Now, since Astarion cannot use a shield, or he doesn't have proficiency with a shield anyway, it's normally worth making him dual wield. Definitely put a short sword in the main hand, and as soon as you get another short sword, put that in the offhand. I don't have one yet, so I'm just going to stick him with a dagger. So if there is a chance, he could use his bonus action to just make an offhand attack. I wouldn't expect much damage from it, but if he hasn't used his bonus action for anything else, you know, why not? Why not? One nice thing about Astarion and all rogues is that dash as a bonus action is really quite good. I could about just reach Quilena, but I might walk into the Twisting Vines, which would be a bit annoying, and I have disadvantage on the attack. So, dash as a bonus action, it's really powerful. Having this disengage and dash as a bonus action really opens up possibilities that aren't really available to other classes so much. And once again, I've got Shadowheart within 5 feet, so we can go for a sneak attack. There we are, not quite finishing her off, but doing 9 out of 10 damage. Can't complain about that. One thing I want to point out about being sneaky is while you are in sneaky mode, what do they actually call it? Hide, okay. While you're hiding, you can see the sneak cones, as Larian calls them, and sometimes they are affected by the light around. So if I turn this iron candelabrum on and off, you can see the red section just at this door changing ever so slightly, and I'll get the sorcerer to turn this one off. And you can see it's now completely dark. This won't always be able to be used. There will be times where you can't get to the candles or the light source, but here I can. And one other thing worth mentioning is Minor Illusion can be cast while stealthed, and can make everyone group together, make them all walk over. And I don't know if I've actually got a good AoE ready on Gale, because we're only level 2 at the moment. Maybe I could cast Grease or Sleep. At high levels, Shatter, Cloud of Daggers from another character there will be very powerful indeed. I'm going to grease them all up. Alright, they were surprised, falling over. I can set it on fire if I really want to. And now you can proceed as normal. So you can use Astarion to help set up battles if you wish, and make enemies move from their normal position. So we are at level 3, and this is where Astarion gets to make his subclass, and any rogue gets to make their subclass choice. So we have Arcane Trickster, which automatically comes with a Mage Hand cantrip, and then gets to choose from Wizard cantrips. Then you get to pick 2 spells, which have to be from either the Enchantment or Illusion spell school. Of these spells, while Colour Spray and Sleep and Disguise Self don't rely on the intelligence of the caster, so they're all quite good choices. These are both quite good spells, Sleep especially. These are both good spells. Tasha's Hideous Laughter is okay if it works, but the spell save DC for Astarion is going to be really quite low. It's only going to be 8 plus his proficiency modifier of 2 plus intelligence modifier of 1, so it's going to be 11. So I would avoid that. And then he gets to pick one other spell, which can be from any spell school. Here, completely up to you. I mean, at the moment, Mage Armour is almost one of the best spells for him, because it puts his base armor class at 13, plus his dexterity, which makes it up to 16. But good choices. Chromatic Orb is good for dealing damage and surfaces, although it does depend on intelligence. If he's being selfish, False Life is always good because he doesn't have many sources of temporary hit points. Featherfall, Fog Cloud, Grease, Jump, Long Strider, Magic Missile are all very decent choices, again because they don't rely on the intelligence modifier. One of my personal favourites is always Magic Missile. I just love the guaranteed damage, finishing off enemies. Long Strider's a nice buff, give it to anyone, give it to himself at the beginning of the day and just be done with it. But anyway, that is the Arcane Trickster. The other choice is a Thief, a bit more boring in the sense that there aren't so many choices, but they get Fast Hands, which is insanely powerful. Gains an additional bonus action. I personally, some of you will know this from my streams, I personally prefer the Thief because I know I can use that extra bonus action every single turn. There's no battle where I don't use that extra bonus action. The second story work here is almost irrelevant. Resistance to falling damage. If you think you're going to fall, just cast Featherfall with someone. But I will say that Arcane Trickster is nice. It's a lot more versatile. You do get some cantrips, so if you want him to be the party face, yeah, just give him friends. The light cantrips are always useful in the Underdark. Blade Ward could be okay for himself. Don't take True Strike, it's just a trap. Yeah, these aren't bad cantrips, but most of, well, the attack spells depend on his intelligence modifier, which is not very high. Now, I feel like I've made almost too many videos with the Thief and using bonus actions, so I am, to some people's surprise, I am going to take the Arcane Trickster. I'm going to pick quite carefully. I'm not going to take any attacking cantrips because he cannot get sneak attack on them, so it's kind of pointless. You should be using the just attacks. So yeah, no attack spells there, which only leaves Blade Ward, Dancing Lights, Friends, Light, and True Strike. I'm not going to take True Strike. I'm going to go with Light because he can be using his concentration for Mage Hand all the time. And Friends, no one else in the party has Friends. It does mean I have to get him to do all the talking though. For the spells, I am going to take Sleep and Colour Spray, and then I am also going to take Magic Missile, because there will be times where I just wish I had Magic Missile. This will be it. It also means we can give him the Sapphire Spark in the future, and then he can be our Magic Missile damage dealing spellcaster. So he's now a lot more versatile than he was before, which is one of the benefits of the Arcane Trickster. But the main downside to the Arcane Trickster is the number of spell slots. It's 2 at level 3. When we get to level 4, it's only going to be 3 level 1 spell slots, which is approximately half. Eventually going to be a third of the main spellcasters. But if you've been watching other videos of mine, you'll see there's going to be a way around this, which I'll get to. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't actually recording while this happened, and I don't know if I'm actually going to come across this in the future during a battle while recording, but we can see here Astarion used sneak attack melee, and Zakrug had a critical hit against him. The weapon damage was just 5, a bit disappointing, 2 on 2d6, but then the sneak attack As I already mentioned, but I just want to prove it to you, the sneak attack damage got doubled also to do 4d6. Now I know it's a critical hit, and a critical hit on anything is nice, but the great thing about sneak attack is that it can be used every single turn, or probably used every single turn. So it's not like Astarion is using up spell slots or maneuver dice or anything, he just does it. Although Astarion's padded armour might be nice and stylish, it gives him disadvantage on stealth rolls, so I would suggest switching in for some leather armour as soon as you can. It doesn't make too big of a difference. I do tend to personally use stealth when I'm outside of the sneaking cones anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. But if you are going to use him for stealth, yeah, get rid of this padded armour as soon as possible. Since we are here in the Druid Grove, do go speak to Auntie Ethel. It's going to be a very useful item, which it may or may not have made a video about recently. And Shadowheart has our lovely ruby. So I'm just going to go to barter mode, stick the ruby there, and it's a very good idea, actually, let's go to the sorcerer. It's a very good idea to pick up Spellthief. Now, Astarion is proficient with longbows, so this works well. So this upgrades his damage to 1d8, not as high as a heavy crossbow, but he has the chance to recover a spell slot once per short rest with this bow, as does everybody else in the party. So this fits in quite nicely with his race, because elven weapon training is what gives him proficiency with the longbow. It's not because he's a rogue. The rogues are only proficient with hand crossbows and short bows, so he won't get critical hits all the time or anything. But a quick recap of the video I made is if you knock enemies out, you can score a critical hit on them and recover a spell slot once per short rest. So this is what we see the first time you take a long rest with Astarion. He creeps away. This is all part of his backstory, and it is kind of important for him in terms of his ability in a fight. So Astarion here is an arcane trickster. I gave him the sleep spell. What I like to do is put to sleep the creature who's going to go next, so they don't have their turn, so this harpy here. So then my two characters get to have their go immediately. To try and put this harpy to sleep. Another good idea here would actually be to put this other harpy to sleep because it's concentrating. So down it goes. One good thing to always do with your bonus action, if you have one spare, is apply poison. I'm going to apply it to his bow because he's probably going to be using his bow next turn. This harpy skips its turn, then it's back to us. Do bear in mind that if you damage a sleeping enemy, they will wake up, but if you get a melee attack against them, you will get an automatic critical hit. So show that here with Shadowheart. This is why sleep is such a great spell. As the game progresses past early access, there we are, knocked out, because I've got the knocked out option going. As we go past early access, sleep might get a bit less useful, but it is always going to be a good spell to have at the beginning at least. And so now, since the sorcerer, the half-elf drow, used Fairy Fire, being a good team player, he can take a sneak attack from a long way away, probably going to kill the harpy if it hits. Yeah, and especially because of the poison. And just to show Spellthief in action, these harpies are knocked out. If I aim at them, even with a ranged weapon up close, we've got an automatic critical hit. He's got one level 1 spell slot. With a critical hit, goes up to 2. And it's also worth pointing out, although it doesn't really matter here, but if you do have poison on your weapon, the damage for the poison also gets doubled. One thing that greatly annoys me about Astarion, walking through water, running water in fact, he can and does take some damage. Acid damage apparently. Which every now and again I kind of forget, don't really realise I'm walking into water, and then damage is done, and every time I'm like, ugh, god damn it, Astarion. Hey, have to learn to live with it. And as far as I'm aware, at least right now, there's nothing we can do about it. Now, why was I down here in the first place? Well, let's come over this way. And actually kind of show you maybe I made a mistake by taking colour spray on Astarion. Didn't take this into account when I picked that spell. So if you defeat the Harpies just near the Druid Grove, walk up this way. Shadowheart is strong enough to get up here. Most of the other companions are not, apart from Lae'zel. And in here we have the Ring of Colour Spray. So you might be thinking, well, you know, is it any good? Well, yeah, kind of is. It doesn't tell us there, right? The wearer of this item gains the level 1 illusion spell Colour Spray. Now I will have 2 uses of this. And this ring lets you use Colour Spray once per battle. And I'd say it's quite unlikely that you would actually want to use Colour Spray more than once per battle, because it takes an action to cast. I don't want to be casting it all the time. And Astarion has every chance to be using this ring. Because of his bonus action dash, he will easily be able to get up to most enemies and use this on them. And it causes the blinded condition, and that gives advantage on attacks against that creature, and that creature has disadvantage on their attacks. Unfortunately, when we level up, we won't be able to switch out a spell. So when you pick a spell for Arcane Tricksters, it's important you pick the spell that's right for you. Now, the day after you take a long rest, the first long rest with Astarion, where he creeps away, you will come across an exsanguinated boar. It doesn't have to be in this position, it can be in several different places. It depends which path you take and when you have that dream. But this is another kind of step down the path to finding out what Astarion is, and a bit more about who he is. And I would suggest you do find out. So don't make the mistake that I did and not have another character look at the exsanguinated boar, and there'll be a quick dialogue. Just have a quick conversation about the exsanguinated boar. It doesn't really matter what you say here. I'm just going to say, sure, let's go. Then take a long rest, and we're going to have a cutscene. Now, this is patch 6. During patch 6, the cutscene isn't really a cutscene anymore. We hear the dialogue, but we don't see the characters actually acting out the scene. So before patch 6, there was actually, you saw Astarion kind of creeping up on you here. If you want to keep Astarion on your side, just don't tell him to go away, don't tell him you want him dead or whatever. Just tell him he's not drinking your blood. You can if you want him to. Some of you might quite like it, I don't know. Don't tell him that he can't come back. Then go and speak to him in the morning. Kind of happy that other companions are not so happy. Just, if you want to keep him in your team, don't become aggressive towards him. Yeah, the other companions have things to say. Say you trust him. Of course, Astarion approves, why wouldn't he? But everyone else is very, very suspicious. Probably quite rightfully. Astarion has shown his evil tendencies many times during the game. So after this cutscene, there is now a new option. Vampire Bite. And I'm just going to make sure this goblin isn't moving. And I would suggest the first thing you do is find someone to snack on. For Astarion. So do a bit of damage. And Astarion is now happy, and the goblin is now bloodless. An enemy who is bloodless, maybe you want to keep this for a boss or something. They have -1 to attack rolls, saving throws, and most ability checks, and Astarion basically has the opposite. When we go to sneak attack, see we've got advantage because he's hiding, and he's +1 because he's happy, and that lasts until a long rest. Nothing can get rid of it. In case you're interested in this, I don't think I've ever included this in a recorded video, but just next to this hut where you find the ogre and bugbear, there is some special roasted meat.
Feast fit for an ogre. You notice a peculiar dagger protruding from the tough, leathery meat.
So we can try and retrieve this dagger. Now Astarion, being proficient with sleight of hand, has got quite a good chance here, but the difficulty class is quite high. However, we can also give him guidance. I gave him the necklace that gives guidance. It's not particularly important, to be honest. There we are. First time lucky. So he wiggles out the knife.
Cautious method pays off. The dagger glides smoothly out of the mystery meat.
He looks quite chuffed with himself, as he probably should do. And now we have, it's fairly simple, but we have a dagger +1. I quite like having this. It's not necessarily much better than a normal short sword, but it's got a better chance to hit. The amount of damage it does, on average, is the same, but it's got +1 to hit, so there's an extra 5% chance in terms of absolute percentages. The one downside to doing this is that the dagger only has the piercing strike weapon ability, whereas short swords have flourish. It's kind of up to you, but it's just an easy way to get a +1 weapon. You don't have to pay anything. But do be warned, you only get one chance at this. Once you attempt it, normally you can't do it again. The dagger might break, so just be careful with that. So once you've jumped over this broken bridge, if you walk down by the river, you walk along this path, and there's a skeleton actually towards the other end. There are some other items along the way, but I'm just going to go over them for now. Skip them for now because they're not important for Astarion's build. Keep going until we find a skeleton just in here. I think there it is. Yep, you can see there are the bloated hyenas up above. And we have the Smuggler's Ring, which makes him even better at stealth and increases his bonus to sleight of hand. So now his stealth, let's go to his character sheet very quickly. His sleight of hand is at +7 and his stealth is at +7. Plus we can usually have guidance, at least in a skill check. So he's going to be your go-to person for all of this roguish business. So I have made it to level 4, believe it or not, and as an arcane trickster we get to pick one more spell from the illusion or enchantment school. Since his intelligence is quite low, I'm not going to pick Tasha's hideous laughter. I'm just going to pick disguise self. It's more of a roleplay thing, but there are some different dialogue options if you're a drow, for example, and there are some places that halflings can get into that other races can't. I probably wouldn't use it very much, but it's nice to have someone with it. And then we get to choose an ability score improvement or a feat. I do feel like Astarion has the most choices out of any companion, like feasible good choices. So if you want to go for straight ability scores, dexterity +1 is a must, up to 18, since just about everything he does relies on dexterity. Then you get to pick one more, maybe intelligence, but I don't have any spells with attack rolls, so it's not that important. Maybe wisdom for an extra bonus to wisdom saves. Maybe strength if you want to increase his carry weight. Maybe dexterity +2, so when you go down to Ethel, you can get the dexterity here to make his dexterity up to 20. But in the feats, we have many feats that are potentially not necessarily all like top tier, S tier or whatever, but all really good and let you really customize Astarion to how you want him to be. Not going to go with defensive duelist. Dual wielder, potentially. Let's have a look at this, right? You get +1 bonus to armor class while wielding a melee weapon in each hand, which he probably is doing anyway, so you get a tiny bit of extra armor class. You can use 2 weapon fighting even if your weapons aren't light. He can wield rapiers. Now, unfortunately, the best rapiers in the game are kind of only +1. They have 1d8 damage each, maybe +1. There will be more choice of weapons if you don't use rapiers. Skip, Great Weapon Master, and Lightly Armoured. Magic Initiate, maybe Warlock, because we're going to be getting him to have extra bonus actions later. And this is even better if you took Astarion as a Thief, where he has an extra bonus action consistently. Unfortunately, the choice of cantrips isn't that great, since we've already got most of them. And these cantrips would be based off Charisma. Maybe Blade Ward, I don't know, maybe Chill Touch. Then for your spells, the classic Hex. If he has an extra bonus action, he can cast this. It does an extra 1d6 damage. It's only really useful if you're going to be using it on enemies that survive more than one hit. Otherwise, you know, maybe you should just use your offhand attack anyway. So maybe Magic Initiate Warlock. If you've got him with a slightly higher intelligence, with the headband, warped headband of intellect, which I'm not going to give him, but if you did, then this Magic Initiate Wizard wouldn't be such a bad choice either. You get cantrips, which are based off intelligence. His intelligence could be 16 if you do get the warped headband of intellect, so you could give him an attacking cantrip. Maybe he's most likely going to be using his attacks, like sneak attacks, if you're attacking someone though. Dancing Lights is always good in the Underdark. Shock and Grasp for getting out of, well, he doesn't need Shock and Grasp really, because he can use a bonus action to disengage, but Shock and Grasp does help your team members. And spells, Chromatic Orb is broken at the moment. If you really want Disguise Self, this is a nice way to get it, because you can cast each version of Disguise Self once per long rest. But that isn't, I would say Magic Initiate Wizard isn't very high on the list. Mobile is really good. It increases his speed, and if he makes an attack against someone, they cannot make opportunity attacks against him. So he can run in, especially with the dash as a bonus action, he can run in, attack, and get out of there. I really do like Mobile. Moderately Armoured is a great choice as well if you want him to have a high armor class. Moderately Armoured is great also because his dexterity goes up to 18. I assume you're going to pick dexterity anyway. I mean, you can give him some Githyanki half-plate and a shield to increase his armor class up to 19, and maybe Weapon Master, because you can choose a +1 dexterity, and if you weren't using Spellthief, you could give him a heavy crossbow, right, to have heavy crossbow proficiency. Maybe a scimitar. Scimitars are finesse weapons. There aren't many other finesse weapons available now, because he has got proficiency with pretty much all of them, apart from scimitars and heavy crossbows. What am I going to pick? I think I might pick... I'm going to pick Mobile. Like I said, there are loads of good choices here. The one downside to picking Mobile is his dexterity doesn't go up to 18. It stays at 17. And if you're okay with it, you can go and get the dexterity-based hair from Auntie Ethel. I've shown that in enough videos now, so I'm not going to put that into this video. But yeah, loads of good choices for Astarion. No need, if you're playing through this multiple times, to pick the same feat more than once. You can have lots of variety with him. Also, with Mobile, if you do use the dash action, difficult terrain doesn't slow you down. That doesn't come up too much, but since he can take dash as a bonus action, it's actually going to be more likely that you'll use this. So it's a bit less situational for him. And I'm going to go to the Goblin camp next, because there are 2 items that I think he will benefit from. And I've shown these items before. One is the Helmet of Grit, which will potentially give him an extra bonus action. Oh, he got the disarmed in the last fight. Dagger, and give him the short sword. And Crusher's Ring. Since I've got the Ring of Colour Spray, or maybe during battles I'll give him Crusher's Ring to give him an extra 10 feet of movement. So he's up to 50 feet of movement, which isn't as high as you can get, but it's very, very nice, especially when he can use dash as a bonus action. While I'm here, just want to quickly discuss the Gloves of Power. Now, on Astarion, they could be quite useful because he will be attacking creatures quite often, and he might be using offhand attacks. I feel pretty bad recommending everybody wear the Gloves of Power, and I do know Astarion doesn't like submitting to the Absolute, doesn't like being enslaved. So perhaps for this time, maybe don't make Astarion branded. And then we knock this door down, and we'll get the Helm of Grit from inside. I like to think if there is a door with a number of hit points, just knock it down. No need to try and pick it. It's a complete waste of time. Well, not a waste of time. It's a waste of lockpicking. And then, as always, in this chest is the Helmet of Grit, which will give Astarion dexterity saving throws +1. Can't complain at that. And I'll probably go and get him Leviathar's Love. Go see Abderak, so we can get an extra bonus to hit as well. Again, you can only do that with one person normally, so you do need to be very careful. So I've just got Leviathar's Blessing, and I'll probably pick up the Sacrificial Dagger, as I always do in this position. And we can put that on his offhand, I would say. Quite easy to pick up. He turns away immediately. You can just pick it up. We don't need the Ritual Axe, it's not that important. And then just to make sure nothing goes wrong, just run away. And at this point, I'll go speak to Crusher and go get his ring as well. So I'm about to get Crusher's ring. Astarion was killed, not killed, he was knocked down and got brought back up by the Sorcerer. I've got the Ritual Dagger in the offhand. I've got 2 bonus attacks first of all, do notice that. And because he is basking in Leviathar's Love, he has a 70% chance to hit. He's missed, which is a bit sad. I could now run away, but what I'm going to do first is going to... Oh, no, at this point, probably going to hide. So the idea was, if I hit with that offhand attack, he would have Bless. I can hide here, have a 94% chance to get a sneak attack to work. And it has worked. He did plenty of damage. It would have done 8 damage, but the damage was reduced to spare the target. So Crusher took no damage from the sneak attack. Look for anything of value. He doesn't have it, so we're going to have to. But we're going to kill him, and just for the sake of it, let's turn this off. Get a nice critical hit there. And we have Crusher's ring. So we can see at the moment, we've got Basking in Leviathar's Love, we've got a +2 bonus to attack rolls and wisdom saving throws. I'm going to take a short rest. Puts us above half hit points, but we still have this buff. I don't know whether this is going to last a long time. This probably seems like a bug, since when you have 30% hit points or less, you gain a +2 bonus, blah blah blah. But we've got it when we're above 30% hit points. Same goes for the Helmet of Grit. We are currently just above 50% hit points, but we still have the extra bonus action. Okay, down in the Underdark, if you go to the Myconid village, I would try not to take too many items from the Underdark nowadays, but you can kind of beeline here, and something I did to make this quick is Gale learnt invisibility, and I just made Astarion invisible, ran him down here. So the Sapphire Spark, since we've already taken Magic Missile with Astarion, this will benefit him every time he casts Magic Missile, plus he also gets to cast it 1 extra time per day. And in case you didn't know, when the wearer casts Magic Missile, each dart of force deals an additional 1d4 psychic damage, which almost makes it twice as powerful. So instead of being 1d4 +1 damage, it's 2d4 +1, although some of that damage is psychic, some of it is force. The psychic damage is resisted by a few enemies in the game, but the force damage currently isn't resisted by anybody in the game. Sapphire Spark. I haven't upgraded his armor. If you want to upgrade his armor, if you go to the Zentarim in Waukeen's Rest, I'm not going to show it in the video, you can buy a studded leather armor +1, which is a base armor class of 13, I believe, which should have his armor class at 16, which is, it's okay, it's not the best. If you really want Astarion to be armored, you need to take a moderately armored feat, as mentioned earlier. But with the mobile feat, hopefully Astarion isn't being attacked, at least by melee attacks, so much. Obviously, ranged attacks are a different matter. One of the nice things about having Astarion as an arcane trickster is the access to arcane spells and the versatility it gives him. Now, in this particular party, I don't really need any more arcane spellcasters. I've got Sorcerer, I've got Gale. So he's got Light if I want to be running through the Underdark, since it is pretty dark down here, especially since the update in patch 6 with the lighting update. Now, I do like to keep most of my items above ground, as I said earlier, but since I'm at the Myconid colony, this is 60 seconds, 90 seconds away. We come to this Executed Deep Gnome and find this short sword of First Blood. And let's give that to him. So when you hit an enemy that has full hit points, they take an extra 1d8 piercing damage. It's a little bit like the inverse, the opposite to Colossus Slayer for a ranger. Now let's just have Mage Hand going. Mage Hand isn't like other summons in that it doesn't last forever. It lasts 10 rounds. Now it's invisible as an arcane trickster, which is nice. I don't know if I'm going to get into a fight or I get seen. Seems okay, right. Actually, no, let's just get into the fight. Let's just attack. I want to show off Astarion here. Oh, look at that. He goes first. Now, I haven't been to the Hag. If I had been to the Hag, I would have chosen Dexterity for him and the Hare and given him Dexterity of 18, which would make everything just that little bit better. And I would suggest that if you don't mind going to the Hag to do that sort of thing, definitely go and do it. So what we're going to do is use Sneak Attack. Really hoping this hits. Yeah. So we got 9 from the actual short sword attack, 12, oh this is very good, 6 on 1d6, 12 on 2d6, 2 on 1d8, that's not so bad. I mean, that's not so great, can't complain, no. And try that, an extra damage, offhand attack. Like I said, you may as well give him 2 weapons. Now this guy isn't holding a melee weapon, so the mobile foe isn't so important. But it would be important against someone like Get Cole, who's kind of there. See his head and his axe, but come this side and now he's gone. Funny, right. Now our friend Gale, 5 hit points of damage. Let's just guarantee it. One nice thing about Magic Missile and why I made Astarion take Magic Missile, right. So what we can do also, I've shown this on other characters before, you can enlarge Astarion. I'd say enlarge any character that's making multiple attacks per turn, because they get an extra 1d4 damage multiple times per turn. Now Astarion might look a long way away from that guy, but I think we're going to be fine. Stick up Invoke Duplicity, just to give Astarion advantage automatically, so we don't have to waste a turn, or waste a bonus action hiding. Now it's his turn, look, even with 50 feet of movement, he's basically there, he can get there. And if he couldn't make it, well, we've got 2 bonus actions with which we can dash. Let's get as close as we can. Oh, 64% isn't actually that great. So at this point, I could... Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a bit of damage. I'm doing this because I want the extra damage from the short sword of First Blood and Blood Sacrifice. What? 4 damage. Okay, I was hoping for 1, but it's 1d4 damage. Sneak attack now, 75%, not bad. Oh, look at that. Knocked him out in one go. And let's have a look at that. 7 on 1d8, 9 on 2d6, 6 on 1d6 and 4 on 1d4. He's very lucky there. But even at this point, you know, doing pretty well. And the great thing about the Arcane Trickster is we don't just have to be sneak attacking. On the next turn, I could use Magic Missile. I could maybe use Sleep, depending on the number of hit points left. I've still got this bonus action. So, I'm going to try and get out of danger. Just stand back. So hopefully, Astarion will never be in danger. So I'm not going to show the rest of the fight, I don't think there's any need. But you can see Astarion here is great. As I mentioned earlier, there are loads of good choices at level 4. Moderately Armoured is a great choice. Just putting up Intelligence, maybe Dexterity. Giving him one of the Magic Initiates. Mobile, Weapon Master. Loads of ways to make Astarion into whatever you want him to be. And I will say the Thief is very strong. You know, 3 bonus actions a turn with the Helmet of Grit, that's 3 offhand attacks per turn, potentially, maybe 2. Let me know what you think of Astarion. Do you use him? I know quite a few people don't like to use him. He is quite murderous at the beginning. Let me know what you do with Astarion. Thank you very much for watching. If you made it this far, please do consider subscribing, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.